A volcanic pilgrimage, digital armpit hair, and the most expensive movie ever made, or in James Cameron's own words, a metric ton of money. These are the cinema secrets you missed in Avatar: Fire and Ash. The Treehouse audition. Sometimes the path to starring in one of the biggest movies on Earth starts in a treehouse in the Cuban jungle. That was the case for Una Chaplin, who was cast as Varang, the fierce leader of the Ash people. When the call came to audition, Chaplin was living a very different kind of life. Secluded, off-grid, and apparently not in a huge rush to rejoin civilization. She later joked that this was one of the very few opportunities that could actually have pulled her out of hiding. And honestly, that seems right. If James Cameron calls, you probably pick up. Cameron chose her over several major movie stars because her audition had something the others didn't. She captured Varang's full mix of danger, sexuality, dominance, and fury, which is basically the whole character in one package. Meanwhile, Chaplin was struck by how intensely Cameron threw himself into every scene, physically, psychologically, and emotionally, which, if you followed literally anything about James Cameron, probably won't come as a huge shock. The man does not exactly do casual. The Ash people's real-world roots. Like much of Pandora, the Ash people weren't created in a vacuum. James Cameron drew on real-world experience, including a 2012 trip to Papua New Guinea, where he saw the aftermath of a volcanic eruption in Rabaul. A city buried in ash became part of the visual and emotional foundation for the clan. That influence carried into the culture as well. The Ash people's fire dance was inspired by the Baining people of New Britain, Papua New Guinea, giving the clan something more specific and grounded than just the fire Na'vi. So he wasn't just designing a tougher-looking tribe for the sake of it, he was building a culture shaped by landscape, ritual, and inherited memory, and that's part of what makes the Ash people feel more interesting than standard antagonists. I Brotcha burger. On the face of it, the scene where Recom Quaritch brings his captive son a cheeseburger is just another awkward father-son bonding attempt. But this one mumbled line gave the franchise arguably its first, and certainly its biggest, meme-worthy moment, powered entirely by the internet's ability to home in on one random detail and declare it iconic.
I brought you a burger.
I Brotcha burger has all the key ingredients of a classic meme. It's weirdly specific, instantly quotable, and just a little awkward. Fans latched onto it in a big way, even calling Quaritch Toruk Makto and Father of the Century. I Brotcha burger also became a 3 to 5 word comeback to anyone who accused the franchise of lacking cultural impact. Massive ticket sales make you a hit. Groundbreaking visual effects make you important. But getting turned into a stupid, endlessly repeatable meme? That's when you know you've really arrived. The aliens' callback. In the climactic fight of the film, Kiri delivers a line to Varang that will sound familiar to longtime James Cameron fans.
Leave my mother alone.
This is a direct and intentional callback to Ripley's iconic line in Aliens,
Get away from her, you bitch!
What makes this Easter egg so perfect is the casting. Both Ripley and Kiri are played by the legendary Sigourney Weaver. It's a brilliant nod that bridges Cameron's two most famous sci-fi universes, rewarding longtime fans with a moment of pure cinematic joy. Speaking of which, the new Na'vi body system. If you thought the digital characters in The Way of Water looked real, Fire and Ash took things a step further by completely changing how they were built. Instead of the old method where digital bones drove the movement and animators had to go in and fix the skin afterward, they switched to a muscle-driven body system. This meant digital muscles were actually driving the bone movement, allowing the skin to slide and preserve volume naturally. It sounds incredibly technical, but the result is that Na'vi bodies move with a level of realism that was previously impossible without painstaking frame-by-frame corrections. They even used neural networks to speed up the massive simulation process, proving that the tech behind the scenes is just as sci-fi as the movie itself. Kiri's Space Odyssey. Toward the end of Fire and Ash, Kiri finally makes direct contact with Eywa, Pandora's global consciousness. And the visual is pretty cosmic. Eywa appears as a radiant Na'vi face, glowing in a way that feels less like ordinary Avatar spirituality and more like something out of 2001: A Space Odyssey. More specifically, it resembles the Star Child seen at the end of Kubrick's sci-fi classic. The Star Child represents the next step in human evolution. James Cameron seems to be doing something similar, only filtered through Pandoran spirituality. Less cold cosmic mystery, more glowing alien eco-mysticism. Neytiri's necklace. There's a small detail in Fire and Ash that says a lot without saying anything at all. Neytiri wears Neteyam's necklace. It's easy to miss, but it tells you where she's at emotionally at the start of the film. She's still carrying her son with her, literally, and the necklace turns her grief into something visible. And it's not the first time the franchise has tied memory and loss to personal objects. If you look closely, you'll notice that Kiri's necklace is the same one worn by her mother, Grace Augustine, in the first film. Some fans also believe that this necklace originally belonged to Silwanen, Neytiri's older sister. Silwanen was killed by the RDA while seeking sanctuary at Grace's school, in a tragedy that ended any chance of peaceful cooperation between the species. Capturing ash, flame, and light. Fire and ash did not exactly choose the easiest new element to build a movie around. After The Way of Water pushed Avatar deeper into underwater performance capture, this film had to deal with something far messier: fire, smoke, ash, and volcanic environments. That helps explain one of the film's wildest numbers, reportedly around 3,500 VFX shots. In practice, that meant almost every frame needed some level of effects work. Another new addition, the giant, translucent medusoids, required an innovative new approach. They treated light as something the digital world could actually emit and respond to, rather than something simply painted on afterward. But there's one detail that was painted on afterward: digital armpit hair. The team behind the movie reportedly simulated Jack Champion's armpit hair digitally to keep Spider looking consistent across the film's long production timeline, which sounds ridiculous until you remember this franchise relies on making the unreal feel completely real. If a character's hair grows naturally over the years of making it, the digital world has to match it perfectly. Live firing range training. For Fire and Ash, James Cameron didn't just want the cast to look convincing with weapons. He wanted them to feel convincing too. That's why key actors, including Sam Worthington and Stephen Lang, were reportedly taken to a live firing range as part of training. When a character raises a rifle on Pandora, the actor holding the prop needs to know exactly how that weapon would kick back against their shoulder, which is a very Cameron move. However advanced the technology gets, the physical behavior underneath still requires brutal, old-school preparation. Just ask David Thewlis. The bad shoulder. Joining Fire and Ash was apparently not entirely pain-free for David Thewlis. Thewlis, who plays Palak, the chieftain of the Wind Traders, revealed in an interview that he injured his shoulder while shooting Avatar. He joked that the injury made things slightly awkward since he was still expected to project the strength and authority of a towering Na'vi leader while not exactly feeling especially formidable. Jake's biblical moment. While Kiri's Jesus-like journey is one of the film's key storylines, there's a deeper biblical reference hiding in Fire and Ash. At one point, Jake very nearly kills Spider, because the boy holds the biological key to the potential human colonization of Pandora. That setup will feel very familiar to Christian fans. In the book of Genesis, Abraham is told to sacrifice his son, only to be stopped at the very last moment. Jake isn't just choosing between strategy and emotion. He's choosing between the survival of the world he loves and the life of a boy he loves. The return of Toruk. Speaking of powerful moments, Jake bringing back Toruk was a late addition to Fire and Ash. It was originally intended for a later Avatar film, but Cameron changed course and brought it forward, even going so far as to reshoot material to make it happen. Cameron knows the value of iconic imagery. Toruk is one of the defining symbols of Jake's rise in the first film, so bringing it back instantly reconnects the story to the mythic side of the saga. The Nightwraith. Fire and Ash introduces a whole new roster of creatures, but the standout is the Nightwraith. This massive, four-winged aerial predator is Varang's mount. It's essentially a super banshee, complete with a bony head crest used for spearing prey, but its design was actually a post-production addition, proving how fluid the Avatar production process can be. Expanding Payakan's role. Sometimes the audience gets a say in how the story unfolds, and one of the biggest beneficiaries of this was Payakan, the outcast Tulkun friend of Loak. When Payakan emerged as a massive fan favorite in the second movie, Cameron actually went back and reworked Fire and Ash to give the creature a much more prominent role. The Tulkun and the Tolkien. That decision leads to one of Fire and Ash's most epic moments. The Tulkun finally breaking their vow of non-violence and entering the war for Pandora. That decision instantly drew fan comparisons to the last march of the Ents in The Lord of the Rings, The Two Towers. In both stories, a peaceful, ancient race decides that the destruction has gone too far to ignore. A new Na'vi dialect. One of the nerdier little details in Fire and Ash is that the Na'vi language itself appears to be evolving. Dr. Paul Frommer, who created the Na'vi language, reportedly introduced more colloquial, non-standard pronunciations for names like Manquan and Tlalim. There's even new vocabulary in the mix, including Shiva, meaning ash. 3D printed instruments. After James Horner's passing, Simon Franklin stepped in to shape the sound of the later Avatar films. For the Wind Traders clan, Franklin reportedly designed and 3D printed custom Pandoran instruments, including a Kora-like string instrument and drums made from galleon sail fabric. Different clans were given different musical identities, with the Ash people getting a harsher, more urgent sound, including the use of the Mongolian Morin Khur, Miley Cyrus's Pandora crossover. A more noticeable musical curveball was the arrival of Miley Cyrus on the Fire and Ash soundtrack, recording the film's lead single, Dream as One. Miley Cyrus described the song as musical medicine, linking it to her own experiences of rebirth and renewal, which fits Avatar's themes of transformation and survival perfectly. The secret filming schedule. The Way of Water started production in 2017. Fire and Ash was shot alongside it, with filming on the third movie wrapping in late 2020. And around that same period, Cameron began filming Avatar 4. That's 3 simultaneous overlapping shoots, an absurd level of long-term planning for Hollywood. The Stranger Things effect. One major reason for the ambitious shooting schedule was simple. The younger cast were growing up. To avoid the Stranger Things effect, where child actors visibly age faster than the story does, Cameron filmed concurrently so the Sully children would still look the right age. The discarded title. For a long time, fan expectation was that Avatar 3 would be called The Seedbearer. Once the second film was named The Way of Water, The Seedbearer was seemingly next up, but by August 2024, the official name was revealed as Avatar, Fire, and Ash. Cameron explained that fire suggested hatred and violence, while ash represented grief and the aftermath. The $400 million price tag. This movie reportedly cost around $400 million or more, making it one of the most expensive films ever made. The director has acknowledged the scale of the spending, saying the film cost 1 metric ton of money and would need to make 2 metric tons to turn a profit. Warriors for the Earth. James Cameron has been pretty direct about it. The series is a call to action, urging people to stand up and be warriors for the Earth. Fire and Ash keeps that idea front and center. It gives the conflict a meaning beyond simple good versus evil action plotting. For all the groundbreaking effects and giant battles, Avatar is still asking, what happens when Prophet declares war on life? Which was your favorite secret? And which one helped bring Pandora to life? Let us know in the comments down below, and stay tuned for more secrets.